On the phone-friendly version of Sudoku, you are first presented with the load choices. You can load a random puzzle, paste a puzzle, or load one from our library. We'll pick random puzzle to start. But before we do, let's go over to the Settings tab to see what sort of puzzle will be loaded. In the Settings tab, you can choose whether to show the cell coordinates in the upper left corner of each cell. You can mute all sounds. You can choose the type of puzzle, normal Sudoku, a renumbered, shuffled puzzle, or presented in ghost format, where the givens have been removed. Finally, you may choose the level of difficulty for the random puzzle, from easy to advanced. We'll choose easy for our demo. Back on the Load tab, we'll click on Random Puzzle. This will load an easy puzzle and automatically switch to the Play tab. This tab is divided into two main sections. On the top is the Sudoku board itself. On the bottom are the controls and keypad. All of these require that we first select a cell on the board. We'll refer to cells and spreadsheet coordinates, columns A through I, and rows 1 through 9. Let's click on cell C4. Because of the 8s at A3 and B9, we can see that a big number 8 goes here in C4. We make sure that our keyboard selector is set to big. Then we click 8 on the keypad. A big blue 8 appears at C4. The big numbers you enter are shown in blue to distinguish them from the givens shown in black. Let's see what happens when we make a mistake entering a big number. We'll make a very obvious error by trying to put a big number 1 in A5. Su beeps at us and briefly highlights in red all the 1s in this cell's house. What if we make a not-so-obvious mistake? Let's say we try to put a big number 3 in cell I7, not realizing that it could also possibly go in cell G8. Su displays a warning. It may not be obvious right now, but 3 can't go in that cell. So, it prevents you from entering a wrong big number, no matter what. This saves you the frustration of finding out at the end that your solution doesn't work because you made a simple mistake earlier on. However, such mistakes do deduct from your score. In this puzzle, with its 26 givens, there are 55 cells to solve, so each one counts for 1.8 points. Having had 2 wrong big numbers, 3.6 points are deducted from a perfect score of 100. Now let's try entering some little or candidate numbers. Looking in block 1, we can see that there is a number 1 outside the block in columns A and B. That leaves only 2 empty cells in block 1 for the number 1 to go in, C1 and C2. We'll click on C1 to select it, then change our keypad type to little and click on the number 1. A little number 1 appears in the cell. If it's hard to see, you can click on the zoom block button to zoom the block to the size of the board. Next, we could select cell C2 and enter another little number 1 there. But there's an advantageous shortcut that we'll take instead. Before we do that, we need to understand what Su calls hard candidates, or what we might call binaries. What we mean by this is simply what we see here, a little number that can only possibly go in 2 cells of a block. If those cells are in a vertical line, as they are here, then we can add a little prime symbol or apostrophe to indicate that, for this column, this number is restricted to these 2 cells. With cell C1 still selected, let's click on the prime symbol. So not only primes the 1 in cell C1, but also determines where the other hard candidate resides in this block and enters it for us in cell C2. The advantage of such symbols is that if, later on, we discover that a different number solves one of these cells, then we instantly know that the other cell is the big number 1. Now let's look at horizontal hard candidates. In block 3, there are only 2 cells in which the number 8 can go. To help see this, we can click on the highlight button and then the number 8. This will highlight every occurrence of the number 8 on the board. This helps us see that, in block 3, an 8 cannot go in row 3 or column I. That leaves cells G1 and H1. We click on 8 again to turn off the highlighting. We'll select cell H1, change the keypad to little numbers, and click the number 8. Since these are horizontal hard candidates, we click on the underline symbol. Su automatically enters an 8 in cell G1 and underlines both candidates. The third, and last, type of hard candidate is the non-aligned. We circle these. Looking in block 9 and highlighting 3s, we can see that the only cells available for a 3 in the block are I7 and G8. We'll select the latter and enter a little number 3. Then we'll hit the circle symbol on the keypad. Su circles our 3 in this cell and finds the other cell in this block for the hard candidate, enters, and circles it as well. If you don't want to fill in all of the candidate numbers yourself, Su provides the Fill Candidates button. This will automatically fill in all of the candidates for you, including any hard candidate symbols. Once you have all the candidates, you'll want to start eliminating them. This is where the keypad's Delete button comes into play. Let's zoom in on block 5 in the center of the board. Notice that in the middle row the 1s and 7s are hard candidates and form a matching pair. That means these cells can only be 1 and 7, so we can delete the other candidates from these cells. We select cell E5, set the keypad to delete, then click on the 4. Then select F5, and click on 4 and 9 to delete them as well. That makes the 9s in the top row hard candidates. So, we select D4, set the keypad to little, click on the 9, and then the underline. Zooming back out, we can see how this affects other blocks. Since block 5 has now claimed number 9 for row 4, we can delete all the 9s in that row in the other blocks. A similar situation occurs in block 9, where the hard candidates 1 and 3 form a matching pair in cells I7 and G8. So, we could delete the 2s in those cells. However, there's a better move. We see that the number 2 is the only candidate in cell H7. So, we simply enter a big number 2 there. Su automatically deletes all the 2s in the cell's house for you. If you try to delete a candidate that is the solution for the cell, Su will prevent you, issue a warning, and deduct from your score. Here, the number 1 is obviously the solution for cell G3. We'll try to delete it to see what happens. If at some point you get stuck and you don't know what to do, you can click on the hint button. So we'll display a hint as to what technique to use given the current state of the board. If a specific solving technique is required, a link will appear to a tutorial on that technique. You can either click OK to close the hint and act on it, or if it appears, you can click on Tell me more to get more details, or, finally, Give me the answer to get exact instructions on what to do. If you go all the way to Give me the answer, a full deduction will be taken, otherwise only a partial deduction will be made. On the other hand, if you're stuck and you just need a certain cell solved immediately, you can select the cell and click on the Solve Cell button. So we'll display the big number for the cell and deduct from your score. If at any point you need to take a break, you can click on the Pause button. This will stop the clock and black out the board. When you're ready to resume, click the Resume button to continue. If you think you see the pattern for a certain solving technique, but want a little refresher on how it works, you can click the Help button. This will display a scrollable list of technique tutorials in order of increasing complexity. For example, let's click on Two-String Kite. The tutorial opens in a separate tab and needs to be viewed in landscape mode. You can click the links to view the examples on the board, or click on Narration and Play to listen to the text and fully automate the process.
Kite to the rescue. We find exactly two 7s in column C, with one of them in the same block as B5, block 4, making this a two-string kite, with block 4 as the kite and C1 and D5 as the ends of the two strings. Visualizing their houses, we see that they overlap at D1. At D1, we find a 7 and erase it.
At the end of most tutorials, there is an interactive test you can take to see if you have learned the technique. The clock stops while you view a tutorial or any time you leave the Play tab. To return to solving your puzzle, either close the Tutorial tab or navigate back to the Puzzle tab on your browser. Now we'll fast forward to the point where we have all the cells solved except for one. When we solve the last cell, Sue lets us know, in no uncertain terms, that we've solved the puzzle. Let's check our results. When you're ready for another puzzle, click back on the Load tab. This time, let's take a look at the Paste Puzzle option. The text area is just like the Sudoku 9x9 grid. It uses zeros, or any non-digit, for empty cells. Since we just did a regular random puzzle, the grid is already pasted with that puzzle's givens. You can use the Copy button if you want to transfer the puzzle to another app. You can also erase it all and enter the givens for a puzzle from a hard copy. Then click the Load Puzzle button if you want to start solving it. The other type of puzzle you can load is from our library of Ghost Sudoku puzzles. Click on the image to see where you can purchase the hard copy on Amazon. Enter a puzzle number corresponding to the puzzles in the book, from 1 to 150. Then click Load Puzzle. Ghost Sudoku has no givens, just candidates and empty cells where the givens would normally be displayed. Your first task is to figure out the givens, based on the candidates, then solve as a normal Sudoku puzzle. This is the same format you get when you choose to load a puzzle in Ghost format. It will strip out the givens and just display the candidates. That wraps up our tutorial on the phone version of Sudoku. For more advanced features, check out Sudoku's desktop version, which you're seeing a glimpse of here.